I've had a lot of people ask that of me personally and that of the Texas Bighorn Society as an organization. And they ask, well, how can you be so passionate about these sheep? And kind of across the board from our members, sort of the response is, how can you not?
Seeing a ram or a bighorn standing and overlooking and looking down at you, I mean, there's something majestic about that, and it just called to me when I saw that. I said, man, that is cool.
You know, the Desert Bighorn Sheep is just such a majestic animal, almost like a spiritual type animal up on that hill, something people aspire to see, something people aspire to go hunt. And I think the best thing that can happen today is they're taking this herd that's been so successful here at Elephant Mountain Wildlife Management Area and translocating a portion of them over to Franklin Mountains.
Exciting day. It's been, decades in the thinking. In the last couple of years, just a lot of logistics, working with a lot of people to get to this point.
So tomorrow, if all those samples are clean, man, everything's great. We take the sheep, we release them in the Franklin Mountains, and everybody high fives and it's all good. If some of that comes back positive, now every mountain in Texas, save the Franklins, has MOV on it.
Desert Bighorn sheep, specifically in Texas, they occurred out here in about 16 or 17 mountain ranges, pretty healthy numbers, and in the late 1800s, they estimated that there was probably 1,500, maybe even 2,000, and some estimates up to 3,000 animals in the Trans-Pecos Mountains. Again, they were healthy, and then as the turn of the century, they started noticing a decline.
Through settlement of this region, railroads being built, domestic livestock and unregulated hunting, they were extirpated by 1960. The state was interested in trying to restore that, so there was some efforts to bring sheep from Arizona. They were released at Black Gap. It wasn't very successful because of predation and some other issues. And so the sheep restoration in Texas was scrapped.
Also, there was several organizations that got together, and one that, a person that comes to mind is Dr. Red Duke, for Texas anyway.
Restoration and working with Desert Bighorn sheep, it's an expensive process. It takes an inordinate commitment of both manpower and funds. It became evident to me a number of years ago that we needed some outside help. I went to Dr. Red Duke of Houston and approached him to organize a private organization which has developed into the Texas Bighorn Society.
And my idea was that we would just raise money to help them do whatever it was they wanted to do.
After our organization was formed, there was excitement again, plus money, and so the next step from there was to go to other states and get Desert Bighorn sheep. Our members supplied trailers, their own trailers and their own time, and went to Arizona and loaded up sheep and brought them back. That's kind of how that all started.
But at that time, those efforts were plagued, at least the pens, the Sierra Diablo pens, they were plagued with disease issues. As you know, when you confine animals into a small area, it stresses them out, and when they're stressed, they're more susceptible to diseases. And so, they had some issues there. They did make releases out of those pens onto the Sierra Diablo, onto Black Gap. In fact, that's where the bighorns from elephant, that's where they came from. They came from the Sierra Diablo pens. So at the time, they were struggling, but had it not been for those efforts, we don't know where we'd be now.
That has been the source herd. So the sheep are brought in and allowed to propagate here at Elephant Mountain. And then once they reach carrying capacity, then pull those sheep off and put them in different mountain ranges in Texas.
So in 1985, a gentleman, a rancher by the name of C.G. Johnson, donated the place. And he donated it, and he stipulated that he wanted it for bighorn restoration purposes. That was the beginning of Elephant Mountain. It's the stronghold right now. At one time, what we call the meta population, the Sierra Diablo, the Beach, and the Baylor Mountains. At one time they were the stronghold. That's where we had the most sheep. But Elephant Mountain has been very, very productive. Out of the last 8 captures, 6 of them have been from elephant. So it's been a very, very productive site. There's several challenges that we face right now, and while they seem, I guess, insurmountable with the help of organizations such as the Texas Bighorn Society, Wild Sheep Foundation, obviously the Texas landowners, I do foresee, turning a corner and making progress. But right now, those challenges include aoudad.
We have exotic invasive aoudad, and that's what's spreading disease. The whole western United States have had big sheep die-offs from respiratory pathogen, Mycoplasma ovi-pneumonia, or MOV is what people call it. For a long time, Texas, we didn't have that problem, and now we do.
There's lots of aoudad in the West Texas mountains, and when I say lots, I'm not talking 200 or 300 in the mountain range, I'm talking thousands. So the danger in that MOV is that it causes pneumonia, and 9 times out of 10, it's fatal for bighorns.
One of the biggest problems that we start seeing when this disease comes into a population is also low lamb recruitment throughout a couple of years. So when this virus kind of manifests into the populations, we see a big decline in the next 2 to 3 years in those specific populations.
And in fact, lamb recruitment is an indicator, and one of the ways that we look to see if our population has either kind of cleared the disease or if they're still on a downtrend or stable.
So now it's everywhere, and it's surrounded Elephant Mountain. So the question is not if, but when MOV outbreak hits Elephant Mountain, then what? So far, we haven't had any positive tests on any of the sheep in Elephant Mountain. That's our source herd, and it's kind of a ticking clock. It's like, well, when's it gonna happen? But when the carrying capacity of Elephant Mountain reaches a certain point, you've got to pull sheep off to protect the habitat.
That disease issue is going to be challenging to overcome because, again, those aoudad occur in all mountain ranges out here.
So the question is, where are you going to put those sheep? And that's kind of the beauty of the Franklin Mountains, how this came up.
The decision to select the Franklin Mountains, and before I answer that, there was a time where, while the Franklins are considered historical habitat, they were lower in their priority as far as restoration purposes.
So Franklin Mountains was in the bottom of the list because it was not a priority for the program to reintroduce the sheep in this mountain range, because the idea is it was for the sheep to expand populations into other mountain ranges. And Franklin Mountains being isolated by urban settings and disconnected from other mountain ranges, it wasn't a priority. But then, with all the threats that pose the exotic aoudad, by transmitting disease and displacement of habitat, Franklin Mountains raised up as one of the top choices for reintroducing bighorn sheep. It's just like the ugly duck that nobody wanted it, and then suddenly it became the beautiful swan.
This particular restoration effort is completely different in that I believe that the future of bighorn restoration rests on the success of the Franklin Mountain establishment.
The key element of this translocation is to take those animals, take some clean, healthy animals off of Elephant Mountain, translocate them over to the Franklin Mountains, and start a second source herd that's disease-free and not surrounded by aoudad.
You know, again, going back to, it was lower on their priority list because it didn't provide the natural room for expansion. In this case, we're using it to our advantage, meaning if bighorns can't get out, then that also means that aoudad can't come in. So it's a very, very protective, defensible site.
This research basically created a GIS, or Geographical Information System, a map showing the best quality habitat for bighorn sheep. And surprisingly, Franklin Mountains rank very highly in terms of topography, vegetation.
Again, they're great habitat, the water's there, you know, the food plants that they eat is there, the terrain is there, everything is there, and they're, you know, they're devoid of aoudad.
Before any of this was signed off on, Parks and Wildlife and TBS put on a series of public information seminars. So people from El Paso or anywhere else could come, listen to the presentations on the sheep program, on Elephant Mountain, on the Franklin Mountains, on surveys, on everything, and give them a chance to ask as many questions as they wanted to. We had a series of 3 of those, and they were all very well attended.
You know, the process begins with that site evaluation. Does it present a good potential for success? And again, the Franklins do provide that. And then once we have that initial, I guess, determination, then we start roping in all partners. And it's a multi-partner project.
Again, working with Parks and Wildlife and having discussions with Froylan and the sheep team, they were excited about the Franklin Mountains. And when they, you know, explained all that, it's like, wow, that's perfect. You can see the cost of an endeavor like this is not small. And so the Texas Bighorn Society, what we did was I wrote a grant, a GIA request to the Wild Sheep Foundation, and explained to them the dire situation that we were in, and put in a request, and they funded it. They recognized the necessity and kind of how cool of a project it is, but more importantly, people have realized that this is not our last chance, but it's getting close. And so now that makes it easier, because now we can get the collars, we can get what we need. The other thing we can do is we take the money, the dollar value of that grant that was approved, and now we can take that and run it through Parks and Wildlife through the Pittman-Robertson match, the federal dollars, and make that a 3-to-1 match. So now we've got the original money plus 3 times that, and all that money goes to the sheep program.
Because we simply cannot do these types of projects without, without financial support. I mean, just on a state budget, it's very, very difficult. So then the other partners start coming in to make it happen, whether, again, as I mentioned, the Texas Bighorn Society, they've been with us through thick and thin, the Wild Sheep Foundation, Dallas Safari, Texas Wildlife Association, Houston Safari. I mean, there's just a lot of NGOs that help contribute and support the movement.
We've helped other chapters and affiliates of Wild Sheep Foundation with projects that they need. So now, when we're in need, they've all stepped up, not just as an organization, but also the chapter and affiliates. When we were going to move these sheep into the Franklin Mountains, we needed some water, so we built 2 guzzlers over there. That was paid for with some private donations. 3 different chapters of Wild Sheep Foundation kicked in money, And then the Texas Panhandle chapter of Dallas Safari Club was a big contributor to that as well.
So placing guzzlers is one of the things that we do to, I guess, enhance the habitat, and it provides supplemental water during dry periods and those kinds of things. In our initial assessment of the Franklin Mountains, there's 5 springs on the Franklin Mountains, and 3 out of those 5 springs are active, and 1 is very, very active. So they've got natural waters there, but one thing about natural waters is oftentimes they're in the bottom of a drainage or in the bottom of an arroyo, and they become essentially natural ambush sites. So what we do with these water guzzlers is not only provides supplemental water, but it provides supplemental water in high places that's away from those natural ambush sites. And it's a way to enhance the habitat.
The Texas Bighorn Society community or membership, you'll be hard-pressed to find a more passionate group than them. So every year we have a work project, and for the last several years, it's been building water guzzlers or water catchment devices for sheep. We usually do 2 on a weekend. For the last 5 years, we've averaged over 100 people. There was one year we had 98 or 95 or something, but 100 people come out to work. Those crews have their own welders, they have plumbers to weld the frames, to plumb the tanks, to go to the troughs.
This year is very special because we're putting sheep here in the Franklin Mountain State Park. Historically, there have been sheep in these mountains in the past. There haven't been for 75 or 100 years. This is important this year to get water in here, so when we translocate sheep in, we can build a new healthy herd.
Water guzzlers have helped with the conservation of not just desert bighorn sheep, but also all wildlife, because they provide supplemental water to all those wildlife resources in dry times. And so that water is freestanding and available to birds, to javelinas, not just to desert bighorn sheep.
It's a perfect habitat and location to bring in wild sheep, and so this translocation is very important. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they're like, I don't know if Wild Sheep Foundation understands that this particular project in the Franklin Mountains might save sheep in Texas. It's a pretty big deal. I didn't even realize that till I got down here and got to meet everybody and talk to them, and so it's a very important project. And like I said, it's multi-year, so that's pretty cool too.
So the goals for the program, short term, is to ensure that we protect the elephant mountain herd. And then the other is to do our part and make sure that we do whatever we can to make the Franklin Mountain restoration a success. Once that happens, if we've got surplus, then we'll switch focus and go to the meta population. But then bigger picture is inform the general public, inform the landowners that while all that are important in terms of supplemental income for landowners, and we recognize that we team up with those landowners and decrease the numbers, because again, the densities are just way, way high.
One of the things when we were awarded that GIA from Wild Sheep Foundation, when they notified me, and I was, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And one thing that I did tell them is, I don't know if you realize it, but you very well may have saved the sheep program in Texas through this one grant.
Man, there's a lot at stake. If the Franklin Mountain Restoration Project does not take hold, knock on wood, hope that it does, but if it does not take hold, then it's only a matter of time before disease gets into our only free-ranging clean source, which is Elephant Mountain. doing the capture here at Elephant Mountain, capturing desert bighorn sheep, translocating them to the Franklin Mountains. It's a very, very important project because this is the only clean herd that we have in Texas now. And so the importance of creating another disease-free, viable herd is critically important for the future of desert bighorn sheep restoration in Texas.
The first goal is human safety. The second goal is animal safety. The best thing that we can do is make sure that we handle these animals for the least amount of time possible for a variety of reasons. But the primary goal is to try and make sure that these animals don't get hot and we're avoiding any sort of capture myopathy.
The processing stations, when the animals are brought in, it's for health assessment. The biologists look at them and kind of grade their condition, also take samples for disease testing, nasal swabs, some fecal samples, blood samples, and then ear tag them and put collars on them and then take them to the trailer.
We've got quite a few animals coming in now, and it's great. They're bringing it in, good condition, they're not hot, so operation going really well.
Yeah, she's pregnant. There's the baby in there that you can see kind of kicking. That's its head. You see its little face? Yeah. And it's pretty far along. It's the biggest one we've seen so far.
As far as the trailers are concerned, you know, we like to separate the rams, the older rams especially, from the ewes. The ewes we can put in smaller groups in the trailers and they commingle and do all right together. But the more mature rams, a little bit feistier. We like to isolate them. They won't harass, you know, other animals if they're by themselves.
It's been really great. Everybody's done a great job. It's run incredibly smooth. Nice healthy sheep, so that's all good.
The first time that I saw them coming in was pretty emotional for me. Again, I've never seen that before, so it was just tremendous to see these beautiful wild sheep coming in like that and being handled. It's just overwhelming, but really thrilling.
Extremely excited to have this opportunity to be able to do this, and all of our partners that are here helping us, Texas Bighorn Society, Wild Sheep Foundation, you know, we have Texas Tech and Borderlands Research Institute with Sol Ross, as well as Texas A&M Kingsville. So it takes a village, more than a village, it takes a city to make something like this happen.
Excellent day. Everything went well when that's planned. In fact, we're ahead of what we were, or at least what I was anticipating. Obviously, we had that one mortality. I mean, they're wild animals. You expect that. So overall, excellent day. 55 animals caught, going to the Franklin. So overall, great day. Appreciate everyone's help. Monumental. Tomorrow should be a short day. 10 o'clock in the morning. The trailers are heading towards El Paso. We'll continue capturing here, but tomorrow should be a pretty short day. So again, big round of applause for y'all because we couldn't do this without y'all. Thank you.
So today you see all these partners come and everybody's excited and enjoying it and having a good time, but there's still a dark cloud kind of hanging over the whole thing. You know, as we captured those first bunch of sheep and got samples and then flew those directly to Washington today to be processed at Waddle.
So we're going to be taking samples for Mycoplasma ovidemoniae. We're taking serum samples as well as nasal swab samples to be able to look for historical as well as current infection with Mycoplasma ovidemoniae.
So what we're expecting tomorrow with the results is that they all come back negative. And we expect that because we've had collared animals here for 2 years, no disease-related mortalities. We've had high lamb recruitment, over 60% lamb recruitment. So those two things together, you know, we're pretty confident that, you know, we got clean animals.
What we're going to be doing is taking those nasal swabs and serum samples, send them off to Waddle. We're going to have a PCR done as well as an ELISA test. Both of those are going to tell us just exactly if that population has been exposed or is actively infected.
we're going to be statting these samples. Essentially, we're going to really make them a high priority. That's because we have to be able to move this population of sheep out of here very quickly by tomorrow, hopefully within the next 24 hours.
And so we're expecting negatives. In the event that we do get a positive, then we'll put a halt on the release and we'll send them all back. We'll send them all back. We've got corral traps situated back there, and so we'll start sorting animals out. And we won't take anything to the Franklins that's not negative. So it's not a wasted effort, nor a failure. You know, it's a setback because we were hoping to take clean animals to the Franklins. Those results, I've been knocking on wood for the last several months, and so the closer we get to that, the more wood I knock. There's a little bit of tension, hoping that we get negative results back.
3 years ago, we had about 1,200 sheep in Texas. 2 years ago, we had about 800 sheep in Texas. Last year, we had less than 400 sheep in Texas. So it's on a rapid decline.
This project, this release of bighorn sheep into Franklin Mountain State Park is a big milestone in the overall bighorn sheep restoration program in Texas.
There's a chance for them to develop and grow a population and re-inhabit areas that were desolate of bighorns for over 100 years.
You know, to us, to me personally, they're the most iconic wildlife species that there is.
There's nothing there that tells us there might be disease, so we're anticipating negative results, but still, the wait is a little nerve-wracking.
And we're here waiting for the bighorn sheep to be released into the mountains. It's been a long process to bring the bighorn sheep into this mountain range. They should be arriving pretty soon, in about an hour or so.
I guess the pressure is a little bit off in terms of we were able to pull that, the project off or the capture off with the help of all the folks. So that pressure is certainly no longer on our shoulders. But now the real work begins.
We have a lot of excitement within not only park staff and department staff and the wildlife community, but also the local community is very excited about the sheep being brought into El Paso, Texas.
And I say the real work begins because these next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be critical that we stay on top of them, that we monitor them to make sure that we don't have any fatalities or any mortalities. No, this is typically when they happen. So the next 3 weeks, we're kind of walking on pins and needles, making sure that that we monitor them and we no animals are lost in that.
2 years of hard work and planning with Froylan and Cesar, Hunter, Dr. Wyckoff, all the Parks and Wildlife people, all the way from David Yaskowitz at the top all the way down, and everybody just a team. And then with Texas Bighorn Society and Wild Sheep Foundation and all the other organizations that pitched in, it was really impressive.
Over 80% of the bighorn ewes were pregnant, and so hopefully those lambs, those babies, will hit the ground within the next 2 months. And so, you know, lots of things need to happen for it to be a success. We kind of did our thing in terms of getting them there, and now it's up to the sheep to do theirs. So the future of restoration is going to rest on several things, but two, on the success of the Franklins and the establishment of a viable population of the Franklins, but then also of our ability to maintain Elephant Mountain a disease-free, free-ranging herd. So we've got our work cut out for us. But as far as other mountain ranges go, we're looking at, you know, the Sierra Diablo, the Beach and the Baylor, as I mentioned earlier. They did go through some disease events last year. And so the numbers in those mountain ranges is way, way low. And hopefully here within the next 3 to 4 years, when we do have surplus at the Franklins and we have surplus animals at Elephant, then the next step is, okay, let's try and restore the meta population to what it once was.
The vast majority of our membership are hunters. And as hunters, they understand who actually carries the mail when it comes to conservation. And it's the hunters. That's the boots on the ground people. That's the ones that are paying an 11% excise tax on, you know, hunting equipment, be it guns or ammo or bows, arrows, hunting licenses. And all of that money goes back to the Pittman-Robertson Fund nationally. And then the Pittman-Robertson Fund, you know, does that 3-to-1 match for the different states, and that's what pays for conservation. So there's a direct correlation right there. You also look at, since we were talking about our partner, Wild Sheep Foundation, you look at the literally insane amount of money that they raise in that first week of January during Sheep Week at the Sheep Show, through raffles, through auctions, through silent auctions, auction tags, and then they use that for projects like this, whether it be in Texas or any of the other west-wide states that have sheep, or Mexico or Canada. And the Wild Sheep Foundation is also a very dedicated group of hunters. And so those hunters that are buying those tags, that are going to the banquets, that are giving money, you know, joining those giving societies, it's pretty special to see.